everybody. So, welcome. And I'm really hoping that somebody out there said, hi, Dr. Nick, when I said hello, everybody. But I want to say I hope you know who we are, but I really hope that we have newer viewers, and you need to know who we are. So we're Alexandria RPG. We're a role-playing game library. We travel to events, and we do these fun things on Twitch from time to time where we have designers come in and chat. I'm your chief librarian. This will be our last chat for 2021 because we got Turkey Day coming up next, or this in a few days. And we've got tons of volunteers in the library that are trying to get everything ready for Emerald City and for PAX Unplugged. So all the little elves in the library are going to be crazy busy for December, and we don't want to burn them out. I'm going to be doing a ton of stuff in December for my playing army gig while I'm here in Ukraine. Hopefully I'll be home by January, but I'm not the one making our travel plans. That one's somewhere else in the army. They're gonna tell us when we get to go, where we get to go, and how we get to get there. And I'm really hoping it's not by boat. So when we pick things back up in January, we've got some great fun things, but we do have some one-shots all throughout December. So some of our happy little book elves are going to be running some one-shots, and I think we have a theme for December. Follow us on social media to figure out what our theme for December is, because we've been brainstorming some themes, and I don't know if everybody else took to my ideas. I may be the chief librarian, but I'm half a world away, so everybody can tell me to go pound sand when I'm not there. Be like, hey, from the computer screen over here, listen to me. Well, I've been babbling enough. Thank you for tuning in, and if you're tuning in on video on demand, yes, I am this weird. And our guest is, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Joel Clark. I'm the lead designer of Lone Wolf Fist, and the lead designer of the upcoming Tiansheng All Above Heaven, too.
Okay. Well, this is a little out of the normal. We have questions already pre-planned. So I'm not going to get to those right away. I'm going to we're just going to chat for a bit, and we're going to get some people into the Twitch chat, and then we're going to hop in with the questions. And I want to thank Lackey in advance for pre-priming the questions. You know what? I'm going to knock out Chris's question. So we got somebody on Patreon that always asks us the same question. And we're going to start off with this one because this one's entertaining. Hot dogs or tacos?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You got to start with the hard-hitting ones, huh?
Yeah, let's go.
I would say there might not be a meaningful distinction between the two if you really think about it. Personally, oh, God.
I've kind of joked that a hot dog could be classified as a taco. You know, it's a soft shell, super duper soft shell taco with all your, you know, and instead of having like ground beef or pulled pork, you got straight pork in there.
Yeah, and you can have chili on either one of them.
Exactly.
So
I guess hot dogs are tacos?
Yeah, I'm going to go with I'm not going to go with the cop-out answer. I do want to say that when you ask the wrong person that question, you get some very peculiar answers. Because David Ramirez gave me the chance to work on this, and because he is in fact Mexican, out of respect to him, and because I don't actually have a preference, I'm going to go with tacos. But it has to be an actual authentic Mexican taco, none of this Taco Bell crap.
Oh, but it's voted the top fast food Mexican chain in the U.S.
I gotta say, there's going to be some kind of selection bias with those votes.
Well, there's tons of chains in the U.S., but most of them are regional. Only one of them is national. So
yeah, has Pepsi funding it. They got that Andrew
exactly. Survey by PepsiCo.
What's your favorite PepsiCo branded taco?
Soft or hard shell? Doesn't matter. Wrong answer. Go to the back of the line. Slurm for you.
I'm really spoiled to doing interviews where there's no video, so I just realized I was making a bunch of weird faces. I was like, ugh. I
Oh,
usually do that to my strategy for those interviews, and it's usually just me and Brendan Davis or Adam Baldwin, people like that, is to make goofy faces at the one who isn't talking to see if I can get them to crack and laugh on camera. But I can't actually pull that here because the whole audience can now see me acting goofy. Curses.
yeah, but so you may get somebody at home cracking up that you just, and you don't know about it.
Oh no, it's gonna be me when I rewatch this. It's gonna be like, holy god.
You're like, what was I doing? Oh my god, my
No,
career is over. Why
I
did
don't
I
have
do
the self-awareness to feel shame. I'm just gonna laugh.
that?
You're giving me way too much credit here.
Oh, this is why I try not to do the super serious interview. Now we do have some great questions from viewers from time to time, and 80% of them from Herlaki. So let's see. I'm gonna pull my phone out, a little strap I put together here, and first one. In your game, you get to be a kung fu demigod. Please take us through this. How do you start? How long will it take to reach the final form? And what sort of challenges would a player expect to encounter along the way?
Oh, okay, that's actually a really easy one. So when I say Kung Fu Demigod, I'm really talking about about the power level of like Street Fighter 2 or somewhere in that range, where yes, you can throw a fireball, but you're still going to take a few minutes to dismantle a car with your bare hands by Kung Fu punching it. Um, so I consider that somewhere in the scale of demigod, like kind of lower demigod tier. And you make a character. I actually explicitly made certain that the character creation was very, very rapid and extremely easy to do and pull through. I've seen people make a character in 5 minutes. I've personally demonstrated that a few times. It's not hard. It's not class based exactly, but it's about as simple as one of the old school class based like D&D kind of games where like you roll some dice and put a character together really quickly. There's no dice rolling in this one for character gen, but like yeah, it's just a set of decisions that make your personality and kind of the heroic archetype you are, and then you just select your kung fu moves, which is the fun part, in my estimation. So
Oh,
all said and told, what's that?
can I be a Canadian Mountie?
I mean, there might not be a Canada in your particular version of this apocalypse, but I mean, should there be a Canada? Sure, why not? Or maybe
Oh no,
you're
I'm
just
just going to be a
saying that.
Canadian Mountie in Brazil.
Yeah, also acceptable. But you have to sing the theme song of Terry Gilliam's Brazil while you do it, and you have to sing
Oh,
it just
I
like
was going
Jeff
to go with the
Morrow
Royal
did.
Canadian Kilted Yaxman, but
Oh, Vermeer and Stimpy. Very good.
yeah.
I actually memorized the words to that when I was a child and too dumb to know that I had a very limited cognitive load as a stupid kid. So to this day, I can sing every word of that song. I'm not going to do that here, but I actually can. The
Our
whole
country
country
reeks
reeks
of
of trees.
trees.
Our yaks are
Are
really large. Yep,
really large.
every
And
single
the smell
word.
of rotting beef carcasses. Um, hey, everybody got to hear me sing. That's the closest to karaoke you will ever get from me, people.
It was beautiful. That was an outstanding baritone. Okay, so the second part of that question is how long does it take to reach your final form? I actually put a lot of thought into that. My estimation was that I wanted this to be a campaign that was long enough in scope to be satisfying, but short enough to be something you could actually reasonably finish in a human lifetime. Most old school things don't really have an upward bound on how long you can level and do stuff. I'm talking about uh, and like almost every version of D&D, you can just keep going into ever more cosmic, ridiculous tiers. I once had someone who stress tested how high you could do third edition by going to level 10,000, and just consistently, yeah, just extrapolating from how those were designed. Apparently, it wasn't a super satisfying experience, and of course, it isn't. You can't just continue to add to something and make it exactly the same kind of fun. But and I was looking at a lot of other games when I was designing this one, including the Marvel Heroic Role Playing game, which is a very much designed to be kind of a pickup sort of game. And
Mhm.
I realized I didn't want that because I played that game a lot when it first came out, and I couldn't get a second session going because we did everything we wanted to do in the first session, and there was nowhere to go in the second one. It was too loose and watery. So I found a way to balance both of them, I think, in a satisfactory way, where to go from the lowest level to the highest level, assuming an average XP handout per session. I have a bunch of assumptions that I baked into the way that works in the rules. And assuming that you are doing 2 to 4 sessions per month, this is about a session a week or every other week, it should take you between a year and 18 months to go from a complete rank noob in this session to this thing to the highest achievable rank within this. And in that, and there is a lot of late game stuff I programmed into it too, so you can keep playing afterwards. But like, yeah, about a year to 18 months is how long I would think a weekly or bi-weekly campaign would take you.
So Perseus finding out that he's a demigod to beating the Kraken.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. I feel like that was like the first adventure arc for Perseus, because like he didn't like chokehold the Kraken, you know. He just he got a magic item. He had to kill somebody for it, but you know, whatever.
He took out a Medusa, so, or
that's true. He one-shotted her too.
The
So
Gorgon
clearly,
named Medusa.
yeah, clearly he cranked up his levels a bit.
I like to think that's more than one adventure.
I might make it two. I like the Gonzo levels of power though, so I might be biased there.
Yeah, I've always loved in the Greek mythology is the gods are crazy powerful and the demigods are just really awesome humans.
Yeah, I like that breakdown a lot too. I also like the Greek tragedy thing quite a bit. I like that almost all of their stories end in horrific failure. There's something just wonderful about that.
Yeah, I was like, no wonder you guys' society doesn't last nearly as long as like the Romans. All of your stories end in violence and death.
I don't know, I love that you can kind of play it for comedy too. Like you could just see it as like a classic tragedy, like, oh, this is the tragedy of the ancient world. But you could also just put like a Benny Hill soundtrack to Icarus falling from the sky, and it's hilarious all of a sudden.
Oh, I'm gonna reread every Greek play that I know with Benny Hill playing in the background.
As though it just dissolves into slapstick in the very last act, and Benny Hill's there in his cop uniform. Yeah,
I absolutely love this idea. See, and silly riffs like this is why we do this show.
I'm here to enrich your audience.
I really hope that game designers are watching this and coming up with awesome ideas for really, really weird things.
You got to be able to think creatively, and I think that back when I was a kid and I was watching PBS as like between my Sonic the Hedgehog Sat AM watchings and between when the Free Willy cartoon came on, which by the way there was a Free Willy cartoon back when I was watching cartoons, so it tells you how old I am. They had these little things. I don't know, it might have been NBC or ABC or something. I remember what station it was. I thought it might be PBS, but they were like, creative thought is taking two ideas and combining them. And they just had like a stick and a hot dog. Go back to the hot dog theme of this interview, and they poked it in there. And I was just like, as a little kid, I was like, that blows my mind. All you got to do is combine two unrelated things, and that's creativity. And to this day, that is how my creative process works. So thank you, NBC or whoever.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never seen that commercial, but that is half of my creative process.
Yep, combine two unrelated things, and don't be afraid to reconsider what you already know. You know, don't assume that your knowledge is some static thing. Like just putting a Benny Hill soundtrack over a Greek tragedy completely transforms it. Be bold in your creative choices. So
was somebody made a video of Vader getting off of the shuttle, the Lambda shuttle with Moff Jared looking at him, and they put was it a Tears for Fears song or something? A Spandau Ballet song. So it's this like romantic 80s song. it's like music matters.
It does. Well, and that's one of the things I love about the internet is that you can just pull onto YouTube or BitChute or wherever, and you see that. You see people applying that principle of just like mashing up two unrelated things and finding this new fun creative connection.
I love every time somebody tries to start a new like YouTube competitor, and I love going on there and finding because you'll get a lot of really random stuff that people are trying to like, hey, maybe if I jump over here, people will see my really, really weird stuff. So Rumble's getting some traction right now, and I love going over there and trying to find like weird stuff because
I'm taking that recommendation. I am, because like to me this is all like, remember cable access back in the 80s and 90s? Like it was the same energy, you know. Maybe they'll see this really weird thing and suddenly these weirdos had an audience and it was beautiful. That's my favorite. Like I love that creativity of the Wild West thing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's why I love like early days of YouTube, and that's why, like I said, every time a YouTube competitor tries to pop up, I love to go over there and see what people are doing because, YouTube, I watch a video and they're like, hey, you should watch Fox News and MSNBC next. I was like, no, I'm on the internet because I don't want to watch cable news.
Yeah, no, for our entire lives, we've had the option to turn on the television. I'm on a computer, man. There's a reason for that. It's
Exactly.
a conscious choice on my part.
I came back from Afghanistan ages ago, and when I came back, I was like, "Oh, let's get the cable TV going again." And it's like it lasted about a month, and I was like, "There's nothing on," and we haven't had TV in the house for ages. It doesn't bother me.
It's so devoid of that kind of creativity that you're talking about, though. After a point, you're like, "Why am I watching this? What is this adding to my life?"
Yeah, because nobody does that local access crazy stuff, and that's the other thing I love about we were kind of talking about this a little bit before we went live is the creativity that is in the RPG world is if the game isn't crazy and you have a group of players that just want to go bonkers with it, go for it. I have played some really weird games of Star Wars over the years.
Oh man, my last Star Wars game, I was a Hutt bounty hunter, and I had the Huttese armor on, and my companion, the other guy playing in the game, was a droid who had a tank of midichlorians in him, so he was a Sith droid, and it was amazing. I refused to speak outside of Huttese to him, and the GM got so frustrated, he demanded that I speak in the translated English version of Huttese, because I would just, like, chuckle and cluck over at my robot companion, physically hand the player a note about what I said, and the GM would be like just panicking with the NPCs. It was wonderful.
What are you doing? Yeah, and it's like, no, we're having fun with this. We're gonna role play the F out of this. One of my favorites.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of my favorites was I was GMing, and most of the players that I GM'd with back in the day knew that I was not a fan of bards. Mostly just people played bards poorly. And everybody's rolling up characters, and I was like, "Oh, what do you do? What do you put together?" The guy's like, "Oh, bard." I was like, "Really, a bard?" He's like, "Show it to you when I'm done." So he slides it over to me. So his performance skill, mime.
Oh my god!
I gave him silent spell and just everything, and then he wrote down exactly, like, if he was going to cast fireball, he had it written down exactly the what he had to mime out. And he would look, he goes, "Okay, I'm going to cast." And he would mime it out. He wouldn't say it. He would mime it out. And everybody's like, "Fuck, what did he do? What was that? Hang on. Oh God, I don't remember what that motion is. What is he doing? What is he doing?" Was like, see, who thinks of being a mime in D&D?
That's the thing. I would never have thought of it. But how wonderful that he did. And look at how much it added to the game.
Oh, absolutely. It was great because I knew everything that was going on. I was paying attention to him. I had all the list of spells that he knew and what he had to do. I'm like, okay, he's doing this. But everybody else,
saucy wink. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but yeah, everybody he wouldn't he didn't tell everybody else what he was casting. He did, or what he needed to motion. So they had to figure out as he motioned, as he pantomimed, what he was going to cast and what his spell list was.
The whole person is just him doing the box.
It was great.
The possibilities. No, that sounds completely amazing. Well, and that the kind of theater of what you're actually physically doing at the role-playing table is something that's just, what a wonderful unexplored space. I'm always surprised when I see a game and the designers don't assume you're going to be in person doing that. It's so weird because that's how you get mimes. You want mimes? That's how you get mimes.
Yeah. I've told that story a few times, hoping that someone will sit down at a table with me in an event, in a one-shot, and just slide over their bard mime. Like, haha, what are we going to do now? Like,
this is the age of the internet. There's going to be a troop of them that shows up to this library of yours, all like in full-on like Marceau, and they're going to mime to you. God. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to make it happen.
I would love that. You know, if you can find enough people that are willing to dress up like mimes and mime an entire RPG, I will run that. I will run that in a heartbeat.
I have a small Discord of beloved fans and patrons, so I'm willing to bet I can make this happen. We'll see.
Well, I will be in touch for when I get back. So hopefully, like January, February, an event going on, and we can figure. And I will be happy to set up something and record that entire mess because I don't know how that'll go.
You have to work on my miming school. Just be like, Get a nice little saucy beret. I feel that we've gone so far astray from the point, but you know what is kind of wonderful about this interview? Like, this is exactly how I want a table to go. You know, like when I'm running a role-playing game, I want the anarchy. This is exactly right. You know, there's that free creative energy. Oh, it's great.
That's what I love, because when I sit down in IGM, I try to read the table. So is this a table that I'm going to have to direct a lot? Is this a table that I'm going to let go crazy? Is this a table of newer players that want an experience that hopefully will, make them blossom into RPG players? I try really hard to read the table.
Yeah, and it's hard if you've got a blend too, like at a convention game. That's got to be a nightmare. Because I play with my friends, but if like it was a bunch of strangers, I've only done that once. I was in a GM contest, and I like the way this was set up. It was a D&D 5th Ed contest, right? And it was go and prepare a dungeon and an adventure for an hour with these three things that we give you, and then run it for 3 hours. And it was a group that I've never encountered before, and I had to do like a cold read at the table prior to doing this dungeon. I was like, well, I'm an old school kind of DM, so it's going to be like a dungeon, and I don't know if 3 hours is going to be sufficient to get a good play going on. And we actually had a great campaign. Like they even like fought like a lizard king and all this stuff. So it was wonderful. I came in dead last though because I was so unfamiliar. So just in case you had any doubt about your patron or Kickstarter dollars for old Joel Clark, he is by far ranked as the worst GM via contest.
I absolutely love doing pickup games at events, and the craziest was PAX Unplugged 3 years ago. I ended up doing a D6 Star Wars game with 16 players.
Oh man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dudes. Oh man.
And most of them had no clue. Like they didn't really, like a couple people were there together, but for the most part it was just a lot of people that didn't know each other.
Well, what did you do? That's interesting. I've never had that many players before.
You try to find ways to get as many people engaged as possible, and then I had a great time because there was a girl down at the other end of the table, and she was being kind of quiet. Everybody's trying to plan something out, and I hear her kind of put out an idea. So I was like, oh, hey, tell me about your idea. Everybody else is in their little groups trying to figure out what they're going to do next. And I pick up this big bag of chips and slowly eat one chip at a time as she's explaining things. And I'm directly focused at her. And then I was like, oh, tell me more. Just deliberately eating one chip at a time through all of this. And then slowly the rest of the table stops. And then they start paying attention going, oh my God, what is she talking about? Wait, what's good? This can't be good. The rest of the table starts panicking, and now she becomes the center of the tension, and we draw her really deep into the game, and so now they're trying to all work together and figure out, is this a good idea? Does he like it? Is this a horrible idea? And is he going to murder us all with this idea? So no one knows which way to go, but they all figure out together as a group the direction that they want to go. And it was great. It was funny because the next day a guy comes in, he goes, the game was fun. He goes, I had way more fun watching you manipulate everyone. He goes, you ate a bag of chips like a supervillain out of a cartoon.
Yeah, it's very Orson Welles, It's very I don't mean you're eating a lot, but just like that command of the social sphere. I mean, yeah, also you were using food to your advantage. It's very Orson Welles as well. So.
Yes, it would just happen to be there, just the one chip at a time, and it just really played well into the group dynamic.
I gotta steal that move. That is so cool. I feel like I'm learning so much from this interview. So let's talk more about your GM past. I'm just gonna take a couple of quick notes here.
I have GM'd so many games through so many systems. So we've got pushing 6,000 books in the library and hundreds of systems. I've run games out of at least 60 different systems. There's 50 that I'm confident that I can run games out of decently, and there's a couple that I can probably run without books.
Well, man, that's a lot of experience. Well, tell me, like, what do you find to be the uniting thing with the games that you feel confident in versus the ones where you're like, I'm not so much. Like, you clearly, you get that many, you've got to have a really well-refined, like, preference about it.
So I have preferences on RPGs. My favorite is classless systems.
Ooh,
So like
yeah.
old Deadlands and old D6 Star Wars. I absolutely love those. I love classless systems. I also love systems that are very interesting and have great worlds. So Star Wars and Deadlands also have great worlds. And Rifts, I think, is an amazing world. So a lot of people rag on Rifts. It was like, it's just laid out different than most RPGs. Once you
Yeah.
figure out how the system's laid out, it's not hard. And it's such a ginormous world, really, because he's been building that world and just adding books to it since 1989.
Yeah,
So
Samita, and he has such a he has such a dedication to it too. Like as I recall, he's never released a second edition. It's like it's been
it,
Rifts since it
it's
came out.
there's a ultimate edition, which is like edition 1.25.
Yeah, but like that's as much as he ever did.
Yeah,
Um,
and he only put it out. He put he'll do special editions because fans have asked for him. And for the most part, one thing I love about that guy is he said he grew up kind of poor, so he always hated having to choose of what to buy. So he's
mhm,
always tried to keep his game books as cheap as possible so
yeah,
that someone can buy the core book and buy one or two add-ons if they could. He wants, like, when I met him after I started the library, he was like, "Oh, do you have this? Do you have this?" He gave us like just off the Gen Con floor. He gave us like 20 or 30 books and then sat there and signed every one of them and
oh, so cool.
drew a dragon in the front of the game book and everything. And
Yeah,
one of
people
my
forget
DM,
Samita's an artist too. He's actually quite good.
yeah, he is. In fact, I love looking back at the was the company that did the first third party stuff for D&D.
Oh, the hell, you got me on the spot now. I don't remember.
All of a sudden I can't remember it, but you open up a bunch of their books. That's where he really got his start, was doing art for those. It was Dave Artisan and worked did Judges Guild.
Judges Guild, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
God,
So
you think I
you
would
pick
have
up a
known
bunch
that
of
of
old
all
Judges
people?
Guild stuff, and he's got tons of art in there.
You also see some of the early stuff from Janelle Jacques. It's weird because you like turn a page and you see a piece of art and then you recognize the name as a designer decades down the road. It's
You're going,
wonderful.
I know this person. Yeah,
I
and
know that.
it's funny because one of my GMs that was running stuff for Riffs, he'd been running Riffs for people off of notes he'd made out of the core book. So I gave him one of our core books out of the library because I had a few, and it's a game system that I like, and we do get some requests for it. So I gave him one of our core books, and then he's at Gen Con with me, and I was like, "Oh, hey, you need to come with me." And I take him, and he's like, "Oh my god, that's a whole booth of Riffs." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "And here's Kevin Simeon." And he's like, and then he's standing there talking, and then he's like, "Hang on, can I go get my book and bring it back?" So he brings him this old beat up copy of the Riffs core book, and it's like a second edition, like printed in 1990, and the cover's kind of peeling back. And he's like, "Wait, you're running games out of this?" He goes, "I was just running them off of notes I made for ages." He goes, "No, no, no, no." He walks over and grabs him the Ultimate Edition, signs it, and says, "This is yours."
Oh
And
God, that is so
he's
cool.
such an amazing man. Like,
Well, and
I
the fans he inspires. Like I've got a
yeah,
friend, Mark is his name, who, as the best of my knowledge, actually writes for Riffs too, and the guy has been dedicated to that for his entire role-playing game career. Like he started in college and like he's just been a fan the whole time. And Mark's a
yeah,
great dude. He's like every time I meet a fan of Riffs, it's that same thing. It's like this amazing handshake for the Enterprise.
yeah.
So
So yeah, for me in game systems, I love amazing worlds, uh, worlds that I can draw players into, because
hmm,
I can make up a world and draw you in with any set of rules. But if somebody's taken the time to build an amazing world, and as much as I love Star Wars, the Star Wars that we know and love, that is the expanded universe, came from the people that made at West End that went back and made the expanded universe. Because Star Wars was basically dead when those guys started. It was nuts. They went back frame by frame and named all the races and characters that didn't have names and races when Lucas put the movies out. So they took a great world and expanded it to this ginormous world and just kept adding to it and adding to it. So and then Deadlands is the same way. I mean, the magic users, cast magic out of the Book of Hoyle. It's like it's a book of card games, and it's like, oh, the spells are between the words.
I love that. Well, and that even scans for like ancient tomes of arcane knowledge. It's not what's said; it's what isn't said.
Exactly. So I mean, those three games, they kind of hit many of the things that I love about a lot of the RPGs that I've played over the years. I like D&D. I play D&D, but to me, it's not the one that I end up drawing people in with. It's the one that people know. And I know a lot of people that play it and then they move on to something else. And I love
that's what I usually see too. Yeah, usually it's, and Fifth Ed is a good handshake for role playing games in general. I think whatever else you have to say about Fifth Ed, even if you hate Fifth Ed, which I'm not the hugest fan, you have to say like it's got a really welcoming fan base. It's really well supported by Hasbro, and it's a friendly system, man. It makes you feel cool when you play it.
Yeah, and I kind of like that it breaks around level 10, so people will play another game. And then we've had people come to the library like, hey, I've played 3 or 4 games of D&D. We've gotten around level 10, and it gets a little wonky. Like, what else is out there? Like, well, and then I put my RPG sommelier hat on and say, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? Let's find you an RPG.
Oh god, and there's such a wonderful plethora of them. I love what you're doing with this library, by the way. I didn't know like that's what it was. I thought it was just like a kind of like a name and a gimmick. You actually have a physical library of RPGs. Like no one does that. No one has like an RPG history for that. There's so much of games
like,
lost.
hey, I want to do this where I live. And then I sit down and talk with them and all the crazy shit that we do and how much it costs me, because people like, oh, you make money off this. I was like, no, I don't.
Really. It's hard to make money in this industry, so
yeah. And then everybody's like, it's funny because about a half hour into the conversation, they'll be like, so how can I get you to come out to our events? It goes from how can I do this to how can we get you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you pony up the dough, folks. Money talks.
Yeah. And well, we had a bunch of people on board that were going to help us out as all the coof stuff happened. They all, I understand why they backed out, and events and stuff. So Artel Saurian Games, I really hope you know who they are.
Yeah, of course.
They're also one of my favorite.
Pondsmith and all of his cyberpunk stuff, which is fantastic stuff. Again,
I've loved Mike Pondsmith for years. I have fallen in love with Mike, his wife, and Cody, their son. All 3 of them are just amazing for the industry, and they want to sit down with me after I get back and figure out how to do a live stream to help raise money for the library, stuff like that. So,
oh, dude, I am in 100%. That sounds so fucking cool.
Yeah, if we can figure out what to do and see what other people we can get involved in helping us out, that'll be awesome. But that's coming down the pike in early next year, I hope. And again, every time I turn around, Artel Sorting Games is trying to figure out a way to help us out, to keep us alive.
Well, they've been really active with stuff like that too lately.
Yeah.
Like as soon as Cyberpunk Red came out, they started like pushing, like, hey, you can use these as a force for good. And what an amazing thing to do is take this shared hobby, and with the kind of genius that a guy like Mike Pondsmith is. Like, he's been making games for longer than I've been alive, and like he has, and like he's still making them, and they're still fantastic as ever. We've
had Cody on stream, and we're probably gonna have Lisa on stream.
Like such a recluse.
Yeah. Well, and we want Mike on the stream, but having Cody on stream was really nice because Cody's really leading the company right now.
Oh, no joke. That's awesome.
Cody and Lisa both did the Witcher RPG because Mike doesn't like fantasy RPGs, and they have funny stories about how that came to be. It's awesome. But I want to get Lisa on because I think Lisa is very much an unsung hero in that company, because most people, they know Mike, they've seen Mike at events, they've heard Mike talk. We've gotten to talk with Cody and the things that he's gotten to do, but I really want to sit down with Lisa and she's got some like Mike and Lisa were going through books in the library one day, and she was like, she looks at Mike, she goes, "Oh look, remember this little staple right here, and all the little dice, the little baggy dice that we stapled to all these books by by ourselves." So she has been part of that company from day one.
Mm.
And I want people to know about Lisa as well. So
Well,
want to
and
get
they
her on the
they
stream.
should, like, you're talking about like
Yeah.
a royal family of gaming right there.
Oh yeah.
Like it's, you know, one of my favorite interviews with Mike, he talks about how him and his son will go out and they'll have like their black trench coats, and Lisa will have like the little yellow one. She's like a little duck walking around with some vampires. So like, yeah, it's not like this is some new thing. Lisa's been there, and I didn't even know her
Yeah.
name, but like, yeah, like it's this is one of the things I was talking about with the gaming history thing. There's a lot of like history to gaming and role playing games, and all
Yeah.
these wonderful people who made these things that we love, and just the fact that you're the kind of person that goes out of your way. Clearly, there's a lot of effort to keep a library going and juggle these interviews and everything. But like, how fantastic is that? I'm so thrilled about it.
Well,
It's
thank you.
really
That's
what's really cool. It's important. It's so important because like you're talking to a guy that loves this kind of stuff. Like this is my if I had any kind of culture growing up, it wasn't where I was living because I was a vagabond, man. We moved all over the place,
yep.
but we could always go and we found a unified, an almost completely beautifully unified culture in people that played role playing games, whether they played Vampire or whether they played D&D or whether they played Rifts was a really popular one when I was growing up too. Um, they kind of spoke the same language. And
Yeah.
it, it's a frightening thought as you're getting older to kind of see that become even more reclusive and rare. I think that nowadays it's kind of moved on to the electronic sphere, and
Well,
it's
I
nice.
love one of the things I love is sitting down. So I told you kind of how the library started, and a thing that solidified me, like, man, I've got to do this, was at our first event, 2017 Emerald City Comic Con. This brave dad had his 13-year-old son. I think he was 13, and then it had 8 friends. So this guy was running around Emerald City Comic Con with 9 13-year-olds.
That is a bold dad, man. As a fellow dad, that is a bold
Yeah.
move, sir. I salute you.
And then I've got all these 13-year-olds asking me a million questions. So I'm answering them all. And then one goes, "Can we play?" And I was like, well, and then one of the volunteers that, because I was working as the deputy manager at the time as well. And they go, "Hey, if anything comes up, we'll let you know. Just run a game with them." So I breast out all the Star Wars books, and I said, "Hey, pick characters out of the back." And this one kid, the other kid's like, "Oh, you're done with the book already?" He goes, "Yeah, I found the character I want. I took a picture." So he took a picture of the character, and it started from there. But so everybody sits down, and we end up, we only played for like 2 hours, and we get a total party wipe. Like, we don't even make it off the planet. Like, it's crazy.
That's
And
good.
then,
That's a good game sometimes, though. Like sometimes
yeah,
the funnest game is the one that ended in complete disaster.
yeah. And then there I am, like, I'm like, giving them high fives. These kids are giving me a hug on the way out, like, thanking me. And I'm like, we just had a total party wipe. I'm used to getting the finger, not a hug. And these kids are out in the hall going on, "Oh, did you see when I did this? Oh, when I did this?" And they're just going on. And this dad turns and looks at me. He goes, "Thank you." And he has like a legit like tear welling up in his eye. And I was like, "You
I got
okay?"
a tear welling up in my eye, man. Like this
He
is a
was
pretty
like,
touching
"I've been
story.
trying to figure out for years how to, get my son interested in role-playing games, and you just did that for me." And I was like, ah, damn it.
You're doomed, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the library at that point had to happen. So, well, let's get on to another question.
Oh yeah, I'm the one being interviewed. Crap.
Exactly. Hopefully everybody at home knows all of my crazy RPG library stories.
I didn't know any of these things. This is great. I'm having such a good time.
Let's see. This is a post-apocalyptic setting. How does the environment and world around the players help or hinder the quests?
Oh, it only hinders. Everything sucks. And also, you don't explode the world and make things easier, Okay, so actually, it does kind of help. I just got done with the domains chapter where you can take all the raw scrap and like the abandoned ore mines and things and start building things out of them. So it helps in the sense that like there's no real property lines or anything anymore, so it's pretty easy just to lay a claim down and have the personal power to defend it and make that a new nation. And you can do that in this game. Like I wanted for the later game stuff, and even for the like very ambitious early game players, I wanted the setting to be something that was kind of real for them in terms of like resource management. Um, there's a lot, and you've played enough RPGs, you know, it sucks tracking rations and things like that. But in certain games, it's very appropriate. If you're in the middle of a dungeon in D&D and you run out of rations, that can be a big deal because you might have to eat orc meat or whatever. Um, so, and it's irritating to do, but especially post-apocalypse, it's important to do because it makes it real. You know, suddenly whenever you find an ancient library filled with bullets and it's the library of guns, it's like, oh, we can finally use all these guns we've been finding, and it kind of opens up a new way of playing the game. And then you have to think like, well, are we going to use it to fight this war? Are we going to use it to arm our defenses for this burgeoning empire of ours? And like that's always what I'm interested in a post-apocalyptic setting, not necessarily what's there, but what does it mean in terms of this emerging tactical thing that's happening. So the way it hinders is it's a post-apocalypse hellscape. If there was a trashy anime in the 90s and then the world ended or was about to end, that happened in this game. I just look at all that wonderful trash. So there's demons coming out of a weird hell mouth, and there's nuclear storms, everything from Mad Max is in there. So it sucks in that regard very much. But if for all the danger, there's a lot of opportunity too. And you are powerful enough as a character to actually seize on that opportunity. Like, you can throw an atomic fireball. That's pretty persuasive in the post-apocalypse. I'm gonna end my lesson there. I think it's answer enough.
So I definitely want to know why did you choose post-apocalyptic? So over the years, in movies, sci-fi tends to rule, and like fantasy movies tend to, not do nearly as well. But in tabletop, fantasy has done well, and sci-fi and post-apocalyptic hasn't done as well. But I do have to admit, I've talked to a lot of people lately that have made post-apocalyptic games. I mean, in the last year, we've had 5 or 6 different post-apocalyptic games on the chat.
Yeah, it's been a growing genre, and you can kind of thank Apocalypse World for that. I'm not a huge fan of that system, but you got to admit it's been very influential in terms of game design. The Root RPG is using Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
New Avatar RPG is using Powered by the Apocalypse, and it's a good, cool setting that's well realized. I personally did it because the initial idea for this game is I want to make a Fist of the North Star campaign, and it's a post-apocalyptic setting. It's a little bit of a riff on the Mad Max franchise, and I loved those franchises, both of them growing up. And there is actually a Fist of the North Star RPG. I think it's Italian, I want to say, and it's
yeah, I've been trying to find a copy.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to hunt down. I've been trying, and much like you, I've had very little success.
I found the Pirates of Darkwater RPG, so if I can find that, I can find anything.
Wow, no, that's incredibly cool. First of all,
it's still sealed, so if anybody has Pirates of Darkwater opened and is looking for a sealed version, we can work something out. I don't know. I can't bring it to myself to open that thing up because I know somebody out there wants that sealed.
Yeah, and if they're willing to give you an open copy, that seems like a reasonable trade.
Exactly. I figure, if they've, they got an open copy in a bag of dice or something.
Works pretty good. But yeah, so yeah, for me, the initial impetus was that, and also I noticed that a lot of the anime that I loved growing up, like almost all of it had to do with either a post-apocalypse in the case of like Vampire Hunter D, which is a post-apocalyptic world, or a potential apocalypse. Like Ninja Scroll and Demon City Shinjuku both have this thing where there's what is effectively an apocalypse that's narrowly averted. And I was like, well, why not just have it happen? How about the hero dies and the bad guy wins? What happens after that? Because I'm an edgy teenager at heart, I guess.
I don't know. I wrote some sci-fi back in the day, and I like stories where the bad guy wins.
Yeah, same. I have a whole bad guy faction in this, which all wear trench coats and have katanas and summon demons because I knew I would have to have them.
Absolutely. What game shouldn't have those?
Exactly.
Well, okay. Star Wars has people in trench coats.
Yeah, no, even like you'll note them. When you're looking for them, they show up everywhere. They're in all the vampire media. Of course, they're in the vampire media.
I'm glad you brought up Vampire Hunter D. I know the producer. She's very happy with that because I think Vampire Hunter D lived in our DVD player in our bedroom for a couple years, and I know the theme song very well to the menu on Vampire Hunter.
Yeah. Well, did you have the older one with the little flat animation, or did you have Bloodlines, which is one they did right after that,
No,
which
no,
had that really explosive animation?
no. The original one, if I remember correctly.
I really like that one. I think people see the one that came right after, they see Bloodlines, and it's such an amazing jump in animation quality, like that they just kind of forget that the first one existed. But there's a lot to recommend to the first one. There really is. It's a
I think
fantastic
the first
story.
one's a better story.
It is, and it's more atmospheric, and you get a better
Yeah.
sense of B as a character. It's really rich. I like the bad guys a lot more. I like the music a lot more personally.
Oh, yes.
Um,
And I can't get the word Dunpeel out of my head because of that cartoon.
Dunpeel. I love one of the dubs had that blonde guy had a French accent. I don't know why they chose French accent because the rest of the it's not like this is some like it's a village where everyone
Yeah.
should have the same accent, right? But this one guy is French, so he's like, "I'll get that Dunpeel," and it's just like. No one dies like a star, no one fries like a star, no one has a magic candle and lies like a star. And this is the second time I've sung in this interview, by the way.
Oh, this is a far more oddball interview, and if anybody down at the bottom, if you have or anybody watching, feel free to send your questions, and Carissa will get those to me. We're whittling through the questions that Lackey has, and going on 957 tangents on the way. So,
As you do.
let's see. Next question. Let's see. How does the depth and detail of the martial combat system enhance gameplay?
Ooh, that's got to be someone from my forum. Someone had to be
Nope.
hand
Well,
spooning me that one.
I don't know if Lackey's in your forum, but Lackey, these are Lackey asks a
Oh,
lot of.
really?
Lackey
I like
is
this guy.
great because he also designs games, and he's pretty gives
Well,
us some pretty good questions.
guy knew which question to softball over the plate to me. That's a great one. Okay, so I'm really proud of the martial arts system, mostly because I didn't design the whole thing. It's based on Legends of the Woolen system, which I've got right here. And I actually talked to the guys who made this. David Ramirez, like I said, gave me a chance to work on this, and Eric
Made you
Timbrek,
answer
and
tacos.
yeah, well, I don't think he ever made me tacos, but he would. He's the kind of man who would. He's a cultural man, a man of character. But Eric Tinbreck and Jerry Skold, the two guys who designed this, also talk to me pretty frequently. I'm friends with Jerry on Twitter, and me and Eric will occasionally email back and forth whenever I get into a despondent, self-doubting moment. I'll be like, "Eric, help me," and he will, because Eric Tinbreck's an amazing character. So I've actually talked to them a lot, and first of all, though, let me sing the praises of these game design geniuses. They took what was initially Greg Stoltz's system. I forget what it's called. Is it the rain system? It's the one where you pick up D10s and you roll them and you match sets, and like that's kind of
Yeah,
like the progenitor of all of this stuff. And it's
yeah,
it's the same thing. You have a pool of dice instead of like a bunch of stats in the sheet. You just have a pool of dice that you just appeal to, and you make them do stuff. They're just your action pool, and you roll them and you match them as sets, and each one can be its own action. And that's such a wonderful way to take to kind of like take the sort of chaos versus skill of a martial arts fight, because there's always like this fluid changing opportunities in martial arts fighting scenes and in real martial arts too. Like you never know when you're going to have to whip out your martial arts powers in real life. Not that we can throw fireballs, but like I used to be a martial artist. I know how to fight a little bit. And it's the same thing. You don't know the circumstance under which it's going to happen, but your skill and how you adapt to that is really the determiner of like whether or not you can get good hits in, whether or not you can win a fight or survive a fight. And it's a really simple and brilliant way of like making that a real thing. And so just that central mechanic of like taking dice and rolling them and matching them in sets and using those as the basis of your attacks and hits, that was a genius foundation for the whole thing. And they made Legends of the Woolen based on that. It's an extremely strong game. The only problem I ever had with it running it was that it's really clunky. It takes a long time because you roll whenever you attack, you roll whenever you defend, you roll for initiative, you roll an entire pool of dice to get what needs to be a single number. And you can do other stuff with those pools, but it makes a lot of decision points in the game. And so it runs a lot better over like a forum where time isn't so much of a consideration, because in play, a single round of combat took over an hour at the fastest for us. And I was like, that the actual play there kind of hurt the kinetic interest of the whole thing.
With that, once people get the mechanic down, it can go really fast.
It can go faster.
It's really clunky to get the understanding and the ability to speed it up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It requires player mastery is what that requires.
Yeah.
And it does actually run a lot faster with player mastery. I would usually the groups I usually ran with are not the people who like system mastery. They're not big fans of it. What they want to do is they want to act in character, be in character, and make quick decisions that have like they want the decisions like kind of in front of them, you know. And there's a term. Oh, what did I pick it up? I picked it up from Don't Make Me Think, which is a web design book, and it's a term called satisficing, where you don't necessarily think in a lot of depth about your decisions, but you have them in front of you and you find the one that is the best fit and you move on. And that's like the guiding principle of how I redesigned all of that. So everything's much more like squished down, much more streamlined in this, and so individual fights go faster. But what I built on top of that was I took a lot of the systems from the old Street Fighter RPG and like Exalted and all that, the old White Wolf RPGs that do that. And I compared them with a bunch of other like magical martial arts systems. So you're talking about the work of like Brendan Davis and like Wandering Heroes of Evergate and Ruthless Blade and stuff like that, and a bunch of systems. And I noted that they all have kind of the same system when you break them all down. They all have power that does a very concrete thing and a cost and then a pool of resources. And those are the elements that make a martial arts game, like a magic martial arts game. And almost every martial arts game has some version of those systems. So I took that and I grabbed a lot of the design principles from Magic the Gathering, which is a great game for that kind of off-the-cuff strategy. It's got a really cool, well-thought-out costing mechanism for cost into power out for its cards called the Jedi Curve, which I studied in depth. And I took all of that stuff and I squished it all together, and I made the Legends of the Wulin rolling system and this kind of like almost CCG-like martial arts move system on top of that. And the wound system from those games, just really quite brilliant, where you can have individual limbs disabled. I made that one of the functional things of the costing and the tactical considerations for the martial arts. So, like, if you have a martial art that requires two hands, it's a really powerful move. It makes sense for the enemy to target one of your arms and either force you to choose between taking a negative over your general die pool or being unable to use your one super move, which is a real tactical trade-off. And I made all those decision points a lot more obvious to players, and I sped them all up. And oh man, I've been working on this for a few years, so I'm really excited about it. This is my favorite part of the game to talk about. And I'm certain this is getting to the point where it's information overload, but you got to understand, like, it's a simple question with a deceptively complex answer. To players, I would say it's a game in which it does what it says on the tin. Like, if it says you can throw an atomic fireball, not only can you throw an atomic fireball, but you can set things on fire with it, and so that opens up all the strategies you could conceivably do by just having the ability to summon fire. And that kind of has a lot in common with older RPGs before there was like a rulings over there was a rulings over rules era for RPGs, and then for a while there was a System Matters where things got a lot more rigid. This kind of appeals to the prior to System Matters moment, where the reality of the game matters a lot more necessarily than the specifics of things. But I don't think it's wrong to say that the system itself matters. So those tactical considerations were actually taken into consideration whenever I designed everything. And so, like, you aren't necessarily going to outshine or be outshone by someone who has a big stick or, gun kata or whatever other weird martial arts they have. So, like, it's a game where you and your friends can all have your own different kind of martial art, have your own strategy for fighting, still work cohesively as a group, and everybody gets a moment to shine. And it's really quick and intuitive and fun to play. And for GMs, you get all that, but also you get that for the bad guys, because the way the power escalates. And I was really happy with this. The way the power escalates, there's an imbalance between fighting multiple opponents versus a single one, because the attacks that you get that hit multiple opponents whenever you're a player, those are going to hit lackeys. You never fight 5 bosses at the same time, but whenever you're a GM, that's the common state of play. Your one guy has to fight the 5 main characters, and those guys kick ass because they can throw atomic fireballs and such. So there's an actual imbalance programmed into the system that you don't have to overthink about, where you get to basically freely target multiple characters with more powerful stuff. And because of the situation of the game is approached differently from players versus GMs, it automatically balances in a way that makes your boss battles more challenging. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, does this guy have the right charm loadout to be able to survive this? No, they kind of inherently will with the way I've designed the game. So you can just make something that looks cool and has cool moves, and then when the fight comes, which it inevitably will, it will have enough crunch there and enough that imbalances in the favor of the bad guy that it's an actual satisfying fight, and it won't just be some cakewalk. So that's of the things. You can also throw nuclear attacks over and blow up whole cities, and that can actually work in this game in a tactically interesting way. There's a lot that
It kind of made me think of on stream. Some of the people played a game a while back, and there's ninjas in it, and it has the inverse ninja rule. So like one ninja's badass, and 100 ninjas suck.
Yeah, additional ninjas do not add to the competence level of a ninja at all. It is always they have a flat curve for how powerful they are, and no amount of number of ninjas changes that curve whatsoever.
Yeah, until you get down to the one. And then that one ninja is miraculously, all powerful.
Well,
one ninja.
He's as powerful as the army of ninjas. So what you'll do, and this
exactly.
you see this too, like you'll have the hero fight through an army of identical dudes, and when they're at the last dude, for some reason, it's this life or death struggle. Like, you just killed 1,000 of these guys. What the hell, man?
and he's not a named character or anything. He's not the not the sergeant or the lieutenant or whatever. He's just another ninja that survived and is magically now as strong as the entire army of them. I've always I never really even thought about that. It was something I've kind of joked about watching movies because I love movies. But when somebody's like, "It's the inverse ninja rule," I was like, "Oh my god." This is a thing I've been talking about for years, and it makes so much sense when you put a name to it, like inverse ninja rule.
Oh yeah. Well, and having to codify that in a way that makes sense is very difficult for a game designer. By the way, thanks a lot, people who wrote that in the movies and made it a trope.
But you know what? So sometimes I absolutely love tropes, and going back to taking two things, go to movies and find two tropes that are just like people joke about on the internet. Stormtroopers are fighting red shirts. Who would the red shirts actually die?
Yeah, I remember the answer to that was the stormtroopers all miss, the red shirts die anyway, and I was like, that's exactly perfect. That's exactly right.
And I always get angry because the stormtroopers are actually good shots. Just in the original movies, they're hurting our heroes. So we got a comment. Joel says, "Tell them about Hot Bloods. I insist."
Joel says that? That's me. I'm Joel. There's another Joel. Oh my goodness.
So tell them about Hot Bloods. I insist. So
okay, cool. So the guy that actually introduced me to you is on my Discord is Ianix. I gave him a little hat so I can remember the guy. He's a game designer too. By the way, I've been looking at his game, and it's very cool. So I hope he pushes forward with it because I want to play it someday.
So like on Mondays, he helps out. He gives like a game review on our Monday streams, and he's run a bunch of one shots for us as well.
Well, and so he's also a hell of a GM too. And he offered to run a game for me, a bi-weekly Wednesday game with my system, that's so flattering as a game designer. Someone's excited enough about your game to run it, and he runs a damn good game. He does. It's a little zany, which is fine because I like you can be one of two large case of game designer. You can either be the kind that's really precious about it and gets all butthurt whenever someone plays your game and has fun, or you can embrace the anarchy. And I like to trend towards that second variety. And it's a good thing because he runs a very anarchic game. It's like all this weird post-apocalypse that's based on like memes and like just random internet videos and things like that. So yeah, it's been pretty insane. I based my character off of Great Destiny Man from Greasy Tales, which is a YouTube channel. It's just basically Steven Seagal with a katana, and he's insufferable and fun, and I love him. And we do a bi-weekly game, and frankly, I've learned a lot about my system by just having someone else run it and ask me questions and seeing how players play to it. I got actually by one of my players about a rule that I got wrong in the game I made. You can't compliment me more than that. That's the coolest thing. You care more about my game than I did.
Actually, that's not what you wrote.
Literally,
you should go back and reread your own rules there, sir.
You know what? I did. I got rules lawyered out of my own game. I'm so proud.
That is, I'll be honest, that's the first time anyone's admitted that. I'm sure it's actually happened to other people.
like if you write over 10,000 words in a game, you're not going to remember them all. Writing something and remembering something are two totally different skill sets, man.
Absolutely. So, um, you brought up that some designers would be butthurt, and I always find it funny because sometimes you've got to tell a designer their baby's ugly, and I've had a lot of people share beta copies of games. I'm like, hey, we should change this, or this is a little wonky, and then I had somebody just send me a really like angry email like, you don't know what you're talking about, just go. And then like 6 months later, I got a hey, apologize for that email, and we went
and I
back
would
and we
like
looked
to
at
let's take
it.
this
You
opportunity
were
to
right.
apologize. Well, that's the thing. That's what you do. Every game designer does. I did that. I'll fully admit to it. There's a guy, Michael Matthews, the improv GM, who was a huge influence in the early designing in this game, who I did that exact thing to. I'm pretty sure he would give me feedback, be like, well, yeah, but I have this brilliant vision. And once I got over myself and realized what an asshole I was being, I realized he was right. The playing of the
Well,
game is the important thing. And that's
yeah.
distinct from your conception of it.
And it's usually what I call a vestigial rule. So it was the core idea that kind of sparked the game usually, and it's this rule that they've changed everything around it, but this one little thing is still lingering. It's their appendix, and they think it's the cornerstone of their game.
But you don't understand the genius. Yeah. Oh no, did he freeze up? I don't hear him anymore. Oh no. I can't I don't have the skill to keep on this interview by myself. You don't understand. I do a vlog for this game. I know how bad I am alone. This is gonna be a disaster.
Hey,
there you are.
That was really weird.
We covered for you.
My Wi-Fi turned off, but yeah, like I was saying, it's usually somebody. It's that appendix idea that is no longer needed. It doesn't really fit the game anymore, and but I, coming as an outsider, reading their rules for the first time, say, hey, this one rule makes no sense. It doesn't. If you take it out, it doesn't hurt the game, and probably actually makes it better. But that rule's been there since the first draft. And they're like, no, it is the game. And you're just like, well, not anymore.
Well, yeah. And a lot of times, like when you get, it's like, I've always talked about my creative process, like going into a mine and just mining stuff out. You wind up with these pages and pages and reams and drafts of slag. You just have to throw it away. There's only one tiny vein of gold, which is your actual game. And you've got to have the awareness to know where that is, and then the presence of mind to make certain that's your actual target. Because you're right, if you keep pursuing the appendix, that's just slag. It's going to be wasted effort.
Exactly.
You don't know how you actually do know, but most people don't understand, especially if you're in my position as a designer, how valuable that outside perspective is. Someone who is willing to read you the riot act about how stupid you're being is invaluable in actually making a complete game that you can show to people. Like you can keep it in your mind.
And I always tell people, I always tell people that, feel free to send me something. I'll read through it. And it was funny. Somebody sent me one, and it was like 45 minutes later, I'm chatting with them about the game. They're like, how did you read it so fast? I was like, I didn't read your fluff. I just read your rules. Yeah. I was like, your fluff is your fluff. That's, your backstory. Like that I hope is going to be cool. I just want to make sure that your rules are readable and coherent. It is usually because that's where people a lot of times stumble with badly worded rules or bad layout or
Oh yeah, it's easy to do. Well, the first draft is always garbage. The first draft, you're just telling yourself how the rule works. That's not the draft you're going to publish. God, and no.
Then, world building is not necessarily as hard as coherent rules building.
Mm-hmm. Well, the world building that impresses me, and actually I've got my copy right here, is this stuff. The You and Soon the Purple Land is my favorite world building that ever existed. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no more than a paragraph devoted to anything. Then there's these charts, which are things you will find there, situations you'll encounter, places you can go, NPCs, names, that kind of thing. That's the world building I'm interested in as a guy who runs games, because I can use that to make the world as we're playing it. I don't care to know the whole history of Lankmar. That's not interesting to me. What I want to know is my characters are walking down the street. Is there or is there not a fucking werewolf?
Well, that's the nice thing is in on all the world building stuff, there's so many tools in books out there that'll help you build those worlds, build those stories. Go pick up what is the Hero's Journey. It's a wonderful book to sit down and write up just little tales that help build out your world. And we all know the hero's journey tale. It's something we can all relate to, and it's a great way to build up your to build up some NPC main characters in a very simple way. So, that, like I said, there's tons and tons of tools that are out there that can help people write all the stories, building their
I
game.
think I don't know. I think when people approach a RPG setting as a story or as like it has this kind of novel element to it, and like maybe I'm just not a big fan of genre fiction, but I never read that stuff. I'm like you. I go to the rules, the part I'm going to use,
Yeah.
and I rarely read fluff.
But in the long and short of, I mean, that's why I like to go back to Rifts, because it is a big immersive world. And he spent decades, 1989, I believe, is when the first edition of Rifts came out. So that's 32 years. Oh my God, 32 years.
Yep.
That's,
Now you feel it whenever you actually do the math. Until you do
yeah,
the math, you're like, "Oh, it was the '80s. That wasn't too long ago."
yeah.
And then you're like,
I feel
"Oh
it every
no,
time I get up get up to go somewhere, like crack, crack. Oh,
oh God!" Welcome to the Old Man Podcast. We talk about our sciatica.
yeah.
No, but here's the thing that Kevin's so ingenious about, though. The reason we know and love Rifts as a universe is because you can drive a tank there or be a glitter boy or like all the stuff you can do. Like it's all rules, it's all mechanics. It's something that you can reach out and grab as a player and a GM. That's what is impressive about that to me. And it,
And he's done a ton of little stories. He's not done, Lord of the Rings style stories about it. And that's that I try to get, like, that's why I was saying you can do a lot of like little tiny hero's journeys for these characters. That this is your NPC. This describes this. You can use a short story to describe a ton of world building. That now anybody that's sitting down that understands your rules reads through one or two of these real short stories and go, I know that world.
I
I
get
can
it. Yeah,
now.
exactly. That's exactly it. Like, don't give me the history, give me the myths. Give me the things that people
Yeah.
tell around a campfire. That's what I want.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good point. And it's because, I mean, honestly, Star Wars is the original trilogy of Star Wars is you're just sitting around listening to R2D2 and C3PO retell the stories.
Yeah, and like, how often do they even tell stories? Like, we didn't hear about even Darth Plagueis the Wise, who's a very important NPC in that world, like until the sixth movie, the third prequel. Like, it
Yeah,
wasn't even something that we knew about, and we already knew so much about Star Wars that when it was introduced, we're like, oh yes, that makes sense. You know?
yeah, and it was just a short story, and then it's cool. They went back and they wrote books on it, and they were able. That's why it's one of the cool things. Let's see, we've got some more questions. Let's see. Oh, Enix says, tell us about the hot dog vendor.
Oh God. All right. So the last session we had a hot blooded heroes. Well, we were trying out the because the bad guys in this one are the trench coat katana guys. So they've got two different kung fu trees. The one is Rebi Ra from Demon City Shinjuku. So it's all about having a trench coat and a magic katana and shooting pink lasers at people and summoning demons. So pretty normal stuff that everyone does. And the other one is just being a ninja because somebody had to be the goddamn ninja. So I'll make it the bad guys. And so we hadn't really done much in the stealth rules. And in the previous session, we were in like a little pit fight. And so we have a guy that does guns. We had a crummy version of Batman, which I thought was a great character. He was like a homeless Batman. We had my guy, who's kind of a melee dude. I do like status effects effectively. And then we had a guy with a big old hit and stick. And the big old hit and stick martial art really, really shines in a pit fight. Because everybody was like, oh, maybe we got to rebalance that. You haven't really finalized this yet. And I'm like, give it time, folks, give it time. So in this fight, our brilliant GM Enix was like, okay, we're going to do stealthy stuff. One of us has enough to overcome this dude's stealth, but we're in a big grassy field. So he's rolling stealth. It's really high, super hidden, but we're in a huge field. Where's he going to hide? He puts on a fake mustache and whips out this hot dog cart. And so everyone else in the party is totally duped by this because we can't overcome his stealth. It's kind of a silly version of the game. And so I'm sitting there in character, like buying hot dogs from the guy, and he's just putting like these burning evil shuriken in them, and like, here's your hot dog, sir. And I'm like, how delicious! And I just eat it and die. And and the one character that can see him has like a Kaneda-esque giant red rocket bike, and he keeps running through the hot dog stand to try and kill this guy. But he's tough enough that that keeps happening. So he's just run through the stand, blow up the hot dogs. They'll go spraying everywhere. I'm sitting here eating poison hot dogs going, hey, don't kill my friend the hot dog vendor. I need to get, some food in me so I can find this hidden ninja guy. So he puts back up another hot dog stand and gets blown through again. It was a brilliant moment by a brilliant GM. And I just want to, I'm really glad that we got a chance to talk about it on this live stream.
Nice. So, your ninjas are definitely into hot dogs, not tacos then. How many times can we reference hot dogs and tacos in one stream?
That is our theme. I'm sticking to it.
I hope you're watching, Chris. You have themed our episode finally. You've got to come up with a new question. Lost my. There's my questions. So this one kind of goes back to you're talking about the guy with the big stick saying somebody thought it wasn't valid. What rule came up during playtesting that's absolutely bonkers or broken, and how do you fix it?
Oh God, all of them. Every time you playtest a game, you break it. Like that's what I've discovered. The years I've been running this and playtesting it, you'll never get to a point, I think, where you're finally fully satisfied. No matter how well playtested, there's going to be some warts. That's just because of the nature of RPGs. You can make all the rules that you want, but it's not going to be in a little box. Play is anarchy. That's the guiding principle of all RPGs.
You never know when a ninja is going to pull a hot dog vendor out of a grass field.
And unanticipated things will change something's value. I have a whole martial arts case that can set things on fire, one that can freeze things and create, control water, one that can control air, and you don't know how that's going to be applied in play. It invites that creativity. I designed it to be creative. And there's a few things about how dangerous that is when a person interacts with it. But the value of a lighter can be the destruction of an empire if you set the right thing on fire and it burns through a town. And what am I going to overbalance a lighter so that nobody can have a lighter in my game? It's ridiculous. The thing is, that's the thing. I realized that the other day when I was designing those, I was looking through those and I'm like, is the hit and stick power unbalanced? Well, in the situation in which you can come to grips with the enemy, you know where they are, and they don't have any ability to dodge you. Yeah, hitting them with a Mack truck that you picked up specifically to hit them. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful move, as it should be. That's the expected thing, and that's why I designed it that way. Is it broken? It's only broken if other options that you could choose in different circumstances aren't equivalent in power. And I actually did go back and nerf that prior to him even playing it. I realized that I revalued the attacks, unfortunately, because there's one attack that is just, I hit them over and over with my big hit and stick. And that's fine with other ones, but the damage multiplier is ludicrous on this thing, so it's basically unsurvivable even at the highest level of play. So I was like, okay, how about you hit them twice instead of over and over again? That's still a really good damage output, but now it's comparable in power.
Something can be broken as long as it's not so broken everybody wants to use it.
Yeah, if it's not a one true build, that's pretty much good enough. It's good enough for government work. So in terms of what has actually broken this game before, let me go down the list right offhand. The size mechanics and the different sizes of things, because you can fight giant monsters in this. They're like Shadow of the Colossus huge. So that screwed through things in the early playtests. Initiative went through several different things where I didn't know what to do with it, and that broke the game. Vehicles broke the game at one point because you didn't have to roll to hit with them, but they did this ridiculous amount of damage output. Let me see. Every martial arts style when I first introduced it broke the game. And then literally every one. There's 14 styles in the game, I want to say. Yeah, I think there's 14 styles in the game now, full complete styles, and each one of them had its moment in the sun to shatter my game into pieces. And so they've all been very thoroughly playtested at this point, except for a couple of newcomers. The wood style I didn't do yet, because there's one power in the end of that makes you immortal, so I'm not sure how that's going to play. What else? The stealth mechanics killed this game over and over. Here's the worst one, though. Here is the absolute worst one. And Adam Balderstone is to blame. It's movement. The movement rules. The movement rules killed it. And I know this because he made a character, and his whole character idea was, I want to go really, really fast. And so here was me, a naive idiot GM who had just made his own game. And I made this little made a little like dungeon-esque area for them to go through. Then I made this above ground with this jungle, and there was this big in the distance. I was like, oh, here's what I'll do. And I've made this mistake before, and you should never do this as a GM or as a game designer. I put a big robot they could pilot in the distance as a thing that is a looming threat. Every time I've done that in the game, a player has beelined for it and gotten it. And guess what happened this time? I ill-considered the movement mechanics. He beelined for it in the first scene as I was introducing the main bad guy making his big speech. He just leaves, gets in the machine, and fires the world-ending laser at the guy mid-speech and blows up the whole city. I was just like, Balderstone, I hate you. That man helped me to kickstart this game at the tier where he could make his own martial arts style. Guess what he wanted to do with it? That exact thing. So now I will forever have this monument to his ability to fuck my game over as a martial arts style in my game, thanks to him. So yeah, that's by far the king of things that broke the game, was the stupid movement rules.
Well, now you gotta put a librarian in your game somewhere, named Alexander or Alexandria or something like that.
I'm gonna give him a shirt with a hot dog on it, or is it a taco? Who can tell?
And depends on the mood you're in.
Schrodinger's hot taco dog.
Schrodinger's hot dog taco shirt. Are you selling hot dogs or tacos today? Books. What?
It's actually great though.
You've got a hot dog cart. No.
I just pull out a steaming book. Here you go. On tacos and hot dogs. What?
It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. Oh, that's an obscure Twilight Zone reference.
Hey, they reference it in Futurama and The Simpsons. So.
Oh, true. Oh man. So everybody out there that says Rick and Morty's a smart cartoon. First 2 seasons, decently smart, but they will never ever be even remotely as smart as Futurama was.
Well, in Futurama, like it had like a staff of doctors and like chemistry professors and physicists and mathematicians.
They created their own language at one point and used it in the cartoon. They solved an unsolved mathematical formula, told no one, and just wrote it on a chalkboard in a scene that the Harlem Globetrotters they were the ones. Yeah, they were the ones writing it up. So the Harlem Globetrotters in their freaking solve a math problem that the staff solved and just didn't tell anybody. And it was like a couple years after it aired, somebody goes, "Oh my God, what is that?" And they paused.
Is that real math? Yeah, it was.
And it was real math. And then somebody's like, "You guys solved this?" Yeah. And you never said anything. Well, it would have ruined the surprise of the show.
Yeah, it would have ruined the joke. Well, one of the staff writers on that, I forget which one it is, has a principle of comedy called the 1%er. He loves these jokes that are so obscure or convoluted or complicated that almost only 1% of the populace will get them. That's his favorite joke to write, and that was one of them. I think it might be the ultimate 1%er. I love those things.
Yeah,
I put them in my games.
I love Futurama. I had high hopes for what was it, Disenchanted, but it just felt like Disenchanted was all the jokes that they were saving up from Futurama and The Simpsons over the years that didn't get approved for scripts.
Yeah, it sort of felt that way, and
they all felt like second tier jokes, and I was like, comedy's almost there. I know a couple people that enjoy it, and I was really hoping it would be great because I enjoyed The Simpsons for years, and I adore Futurama, and Disenchanted is just. It's a little disenchanting.
Oh man, if that's the meta joke, then I'm really impressed.
That
was the 1%.
The entire show is a joke based upon the name. We have figured it out. Okay, Matt Groening, move on to your next project.
No, I'm impressed now. Okay, at first disappointed. Now I understand I was supposed to be. Now I'm impressed. You had my attention. Now you have my respect.
Let's see. How would a player who wanted to play as a pacifist navigate your game?
A pacifist?
Pacifist.
So if you wanted to play Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender, you totally can. I even have an airbending martial art. You could literally avoid any kind of conflict because you're really fast. and move away from it. Now, I wouldn't say that's a great way to grow or accomplish any goals, because eventually you come to a point in the system. The way you get XP is you do something dangerous and stupid in furtherance of a goal, like a philosophical goal or like an actual goal. And if all you do is run away, then you're never going to grow. You'll only ever have the power to avoid danger. So whenever you stick in, that's where you're gonna need allies. You're gonna have to actually use those moves to fight, and that's exactly what happened in Avatar too. One of the things I wanted to make certain I could do with my game was I wanted to make sure you could play Avatar: The Last Airbender with it if that game wound up sucking. And it's based on Powered by the Apocalypse, so it will. It's a dig against you, guy who designed the Apocalypse World engine.
Yeah, but they got
$1 million on Kickstarter.
$12 million or whatever it is, and they shattered the previous RPG record.
Oh yeah, well, and of course you do. You know, like you're getting in people that don't play RPGs who love the idea of playing a game of Avatar in there. That's like where the real money is in this. So you gotta have a property that you're attached to.
You've got to do it right though. You got to do it because I mean there's been plenty of games that have come. I love West End games, but they were throwing everything at the wall in the 90s. We've got Tank Girl, Species, Men in Black.
Yeah. Well, and you have to ask yourself, are people clamoring for the Species RPG? Not really. The kind of people, the audience for Avatar: The Last Airbender are people that they have that theater kid energy like you and I have, where like that's what they want to do. A role-playing game's perfect for that. It's fertile ground. I watched Species when I was a kid. I never thought, oh man, I want to be in that universe. I have so many ideas for my Species character.
I can't wait to play the character that hits on the alien that's going to murder me in the hot tub.
I already play that character in real life. Yeah.
Now I will say Men in Black is a blast, and it's based upon the D6 system, and the seven of us that still know and love Tank Girl.
I know Tank Girl's a huge like the cover of my game, the Pavel Kolomiets. I instructed him to look at Tank Girl art to help to do the nuke thing. And actually, that was originally done by Kimberly Clevin. And I told her the same thing. I'm like, look at this guy's art. And he did Tank Girl and the stuff for Gorillas and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tank Girl is hugely influential in the post-apocalyptic genre. So
yeah. And that's an RPG. We finally got a copy, and I haven't been able to get my hands on it, so I can't wait to run a Tank Girl a session with a bunch of people randomly live. Like, hey, you may not know this world, but it's weird.
Well, yeah, it's more than you'd suspect. Honestly, like, oh man, that's a cool world. That's a cool world, and I like because my introduction to Tank Girl, of course, because I'm a child of the '90s, was the Tank Girl movie that got released, which I wasn't emotionally or mentally prepared for when I watched it.
Well, so the great thing about that movie is it is so much the comic book. Like so many movies, they take the comic book as a storyboard idea for this highbrow thing, and hey, we've gotten some amazing movies like some of the Batman movies, the original Superman movie, some of the Marvel movies have been wonderful adaptations using a comic book as the storyboard. But when they sat down with Tank Girl, they go, nope, this has got to be this bonkers, and it's one of the few movies that really nailed the original material for positive and negative, because I think it was very off-putting to normies, but those of us that
weird.
Yeah, well, my family, we had a comic book store growing up, so I had a couple copies of Tank Girl because it was an Australian comic, if I remember.
Is it? It was from the UK, wasn't it?
It might have been from the UK. Yeah. It's based in Australia.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember, but it wasn't a US comic, and we had some copies. So when the movie came out, and all my friends were like, what the F was that? And I'm like, oh, would you like to read the comic? And they're just like, what the F was that?
Well, that's a question that's hard to answer it after you've watched Tank Girl. You're like, I'm not actually certain if I want to read the comic or not. No, Tank Girl lives in my heart in the same place like The Tick and
Spoon.
Yeah, like comics like that.
I like squirrels.
Or what was that other one that I liked so well? I can't remember now. Oh, Madman. Madman was the other one that I was going to mention. Is kind of in that same genre.
Madman?
Is it Madman? Hell, I don't remember what it's called now. I mean, let me look it up.
All I can think of is the drama based in the 60s.
No. He's a comic booker. He's got a real. He's got like the complete white outfit, and he's got like a little red lightning bolt on his face, which is very Harry Potter now that I'm thinking about it.
I know the comic. I don't know that one. I never really read that one.
Okay, it's kind of got the same energy. It's a little more slower paced than that, but yeah, it leans into the weird, and I have such a deep respect for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and leading into the weird is absolutely the Tick. I'm a moth. Who's a superhero moth? Oh, sorry, sidekick moth.
My favorite moment from that entire franchise is the 3-second-ish clip of the Bullet Man when he's running through his backyard yelling at his son, "Fire me, boy!" Then he leaps into the cannon and just gets shot towards the dam. That's my favorite reaction to everything.
Yeah. My favorite is still when he's running the training class to teach people how to be superheroes. He's like, "You've got to have a battle cry. Mine's spoon." This lady's like, I forget the character. She's like, "I like squirrels." That's her battle cry.
God, I love that.
The comic book was great. The cartoon was great. I've loved both live action shows because they've both been their own takes. And the funny thing is, the very first word I learned in Ukrainian when I got here. So I got here late at night, and we have dogs that live on base, and one of the Ukrainians spoke decent English and had been playing with the dogs. So he would basically shout "squirrel" and point to a tree, and the dogs would go after the tree. So anybody wondering how you say squirrel in Ukrainian, it's bilka. And he would go bilka and point to a tree, and the dogs would go after the tree. So I know how to say. That was the first word I learned in Ukrainian, bilka.
Man, if this were a Kevin Smith movie, then like in the third act, when I was like chasing you with a hatch to kill you, you just shout "Bilka," and I'd just be attacked from this dogs that leapt in from off screen. Why? How?
Like, why do you even know that? I don't know. It was the one word I learned in Ukrainian. Bilka. I like squirrels. It's funny because I try to make reference to that effing line all the time, and so few people ever get it. So I really hope there's a whole bunch of people that now want to go watch a few episodes of Tick, find the one where he's training people, and see the lady who her battle cry is "I like squirrels."
Yeah. Oh God. Do yourselves a favor. Enrich yourselves. Watch the cartoon of the Tick. It's fantastic.
The Tick cartoon is magical. It is magical.
Well, and it's everything we need nowadays. Like the superheroes are so pop culture saturated that we really need a cartoon that kind of takes the air to their tires a little bit.
Yes, I 100% agree. So on post-apocalyptic games, one that we've had on the chat and who's running some games on the chat, Neon Lords of the freaking Neon.
Gotta look it up now, right?
Yeah, Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland.
Ooh.
So. He's a service member and was deployed and ended up. He was like, no game really does what I want to do. So he's done the post-apocalyptic, but the Neon Wars of the 1990s ended the world, and then this is like thousands of years later. So think Thundar the Barbarian.
Ooh.
And every other 80s and 90s pop culture reference. So he's got a class in there called Cosmic Barbarian. Everything they do, they dual wield. So if they got a hammer, they got two. If they got sword, they got two. They wear a fanny pack that has their cosmic dust in it. So they snort some cosmic dust before they go into their rage. Basically snort coke before going to combat, and then they worship
more fire snow. I've got to go and kill these assholes.
Exactly. They worship the Savage Lord Randy Macho Man Savage.
Oh yeah, that's quite a lord to worship there.
He's got bicorns. They're like humanoid horses with two horns. Then he's got these synths So they're simulated humans, but they're all in the they all look like Ronald Reagan.
Oh man.
The entire world is just this loony thing, and it's a game that you have to look up.
Man,
So I want you to come on and run
you've
some.
100% sold me on this game. This sounds
Yeah.
fantastic.
So when we're going down the loony, you've done a post-apocalyptic game. He doesn't have the superpowers that you do, but he has gone down the absurd. It is every. It's like,
is this like viable? Where can he? Is this like on Drive-Thru RPG?
So he had a successful Kickstarter, and he is getting ready to ship out the book soon.
Oh, that rules. Well, like make sure send me a link to where I can grab this thing at some point because I want one.
Absolutely,
it actually sounds really cool.
I ran a one-shot here in Ukraine with some people. They were like, "This is the weirdest thing ever," but in a good way.
Yeah, that's the kind of culture I like to spread across the world.
Oh, absolutely.
This is an artifact of my culture.
I love running wacky one-shots with people that have played nothing but like D&D. Like their experience with role-playing games is this thing that we all know and is very, it's exactly what he expected to be. I'm like, okay,
it's very rigid. All of your expectations are met. You set everything up, you get the payoff.
Yeah,
and you play paranoia with
what you're getting into. And then like, hey, here's something entirely different. How about we sit down and make some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters?
Hell
like,
yeah.
This was a game? Yes, this was a game in the mid-'80s.
It's a real game. It's a real property. You can actually play Raphael. And why would you play another turtle except for Michelangelo?
I was a Donatello guy.
I hate to admit that I was too. Because it's not cool when you get older to be like, I liked the nerd. Well, of course you did. You grew into one, you big wimp.
I like the nerd even then. And I remember rationalizing loving Donatello as a kid because everyone else liked Michelangelo mostly. And then as people got older, like, oh, identify with Raphael. I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, to me, Donatello was the most badass because he fights with a stick. Everybody else, they knock their weapons out of their hand. Donatello's like, look, I got another stick, motherfucker.
Like, there are plentiful. I'm in a stick-heavy environment. You're screwed.
Yeah. Hey, we're in a hardware store. Oh, where am I going to find a katana? Well, hey, here's a broom handle. I'm doing good.
And there's so many dimensions to Donatello, tactically speaking, because even if you can't find a stick, which is the lowest common denominator of thing to hit somebody with, he can invent a weapon to fight you with on top of that. Welcome to hell. You're fighting Donatello.
Yeah. He's the last boss of the Ninja Turtles. Now you're gonna have to have a turtle clan.
I still have a couple of backers who have yet to design clans. I've been narrowly avoiding having a furry clan in so far, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Hey, nobody says that you couldn't be a turtle as a furry.
Be a scaly, it might happen.
Hey, turtles have hair too.
Let's move on.
I now have a horrible image of turtle furries.
Oh, God. Well, the fact that you don't actually seem to know any of the art that lurks around online about that exact thing makes me so envious of you. I want your ignorance, sir. Pour it into my mind and wash out my knowledge.
The other things I know of on that have been tainted by Rule 34.
I love that we codified those and then stuck to that. What a weird...
Yeah, Rule 34.
Yeah, it's weird because it's just this random list of just like, these are things about the internet, and then everyone just kind of adopted it as the nomenclature. Like, oh no, this is a handy guide to things that are naturally happening in this nightmare world of ours.
Yeah, and the one that most everybody remembers is just Rule 34.
Yeah,
because most everybody forgot there. There are, and most people have not learned all of them. Thankfully. I'm envious of all the people that don't know what Rule 34 is and are blissfully ignorant of that portion of the internet, which is about a third of Tumblr before they banned all that stuff.
Man, only a third. It feels like a lot more than that if you ever go to Tumblr.
Well, probably was. I stayed away from.
Let's do some more questions. This is going into a dark path. I'm afraid of the direction of this conversation all of a sudden.
So we know that you have a love for post-apocalyptic anime or near post-apocalyptic anime. What are some other inspirations?
Inspiration. I mean, I can pretty much give you the list. Like if it was a trashy '90s anime, it found its way here. But a lot of stuff I love found its way here that weren't necessarily trashy or '90s. Like the whole Mad Max.
Ranma One Half?
Not explicitly. Although if you're a panda in this game, you do have a special power that allows you to pull signs from behind your back that translate what you want to say. So
I love Ranma One Half. It is probably my favorite anime ever.
The bison dollar from the Street Fighter movie made its way into one of the chapters. So let me see. There's a lot of Street Fighter in here. There's a lot of Fist of the North Star. That was lit based. All the Miyazaki movies that I love found their way in here. There's some Princess Mononoke. There's some Nausicaa in here. Let me see what else. Avatar: The Last Airbender was a big inspiration. I loved the world they made. I loved the different people in the world, and I loved that like they were recognizably people, but also they could throw fire. Like they put the human element first in Avatar, and I think that was a good move. Like it made it a very relatable series. So there's a lot of that. Let me see. There is a lot.
My cabbages.
My cabbages. That's like the most NPC of all characters. Like someone played role-playing games, and they knew. They knew what to do. Oh, I love him. Let me see. What else is in this game? I'm trying to think. Vampire Diaz in there, and that was the original one in Bloodlines, and then a bunch of other stuff. Demon City Shinjuku's in here. Akira's in here. I have a whole clan of little diminutive blue psychic people. So, and you can have Kane's bike, so that's cool. Let's see what else. God, there's a lot of stuff in here. Although there's a lot of stuff from Legends of the Wulin too, like kind of like legacy ideas that I like ported into this game. So there's a few of those things. Ninja Scroll is in here, so you can be Jubei or any of the Kaimon devils if you really want to. Yeah, it's stuff like that. I mean, like again, I could probably, if I really sat here and thought, I'd be like, oh, this clan was based on this idea, this clan was based on this idea. The Brotherhood of Freaks is actually kind of based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or not them specifically, but kind of the genre of 90s entertainment they spawned, which was like this kind of like gross mutant things. It's like Street Sharks did that too, and like there's a bunch of properties that were just a gross monster, but also a hero, like Toxic Avenger. Actually, the redo of Cave Buffalo that I made my artist do, because he initially looked like this. He was like this guy, and he was like a little too clean looking. So I had him redraw him based on an image I sent him of the Toxic Avenger and Strong Guy from the X-Men, who is one of the 90s X-Men that is just like this inverted V of muscles. And so the new version of it was like this weird, warty monster with this huge dislocated musculature, and he wields a stop sign as a hammer/axe. And like, that's basically my tribute to the Toxic Avenger and other wonderfully trashy movies like that from that era. So there's a lot of stuff like that in here.
So you've referenced Fist of the North Star. Did you ever watch the live action movie?
When I was a kid, I did. I caught it on HBO.
Well, I mean, movie's 13 years old. Yeah, it came out in 2008. Yeah. So
yeah,
it was a little older than I thought.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it's so bad. I always tell people, stop making live action and versions of animes. What is it?
I want to say that, but one of my favorite movies is Mortal Kombat, like the 1992, like big screen adaptation of Mortal Kombat.
But that wasn't an anime. That was a video game.
True, but I mean, like the same principle could apply, you know.
Oh, but the world of cartoons and anime are just so the physics are that of their world, and it just doesn't translate to film, because like what was it the Death Note? No, the one about the kid that writes in the
Death Note, right?
Yeah, Death Note. Okay, well, that's like one of the few that has translated well, but pretty much every anime that's tried to make a live action is just like
I remember for a while when they were kicking around the idea of doing a live action Akira, Harry Parker did a cartoon of the Americanized Akira, and it was fantastic. They renamed all the characters, and they like just pointlessly swap the ethnicity of certain characters. They're like all the stuff that Hollywood does whenever they adapt a property they don't care about.
Yeah,
was
they're like,
wonderful.
oh, this is popular. We need to make this into a movie.
Right, and
And
they just
let's
take whatever
go.
script is floating around that's kind of near it, and they just kludge it together and make it fit
Yeah.
and throw money
And
at
that's
it.
exactly what happens. They take some bad script they've already got sitting, and then they just glue the anime over it. It's like I joke, Star Wars Rogue One. It's the script was they got from the Sci-Fi Channel, and then they just put Star Wars stickers over everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's basically right. It's like if you had a coloring book for crummy sci-fi movie and you just had the Star Wars crayon set,
yeah,
that's Rogue One.
because you look once they get to the battle, the fuel line's too short. The button is across the battlefield. The first guy's gonna die. The second guy's gonna die at the button. Like every bad sci-fi and war movie trope was in that fight. That's just like, oh. But it did feel like there was an entire different crew that worked on the space combat, because that was gorgeous. The space combat
And most movies,
was
you have to kind of dissect movies. I think the auteur theory has died with modern Hollywood because, like, you're right, like a totally different movie got made to put onto this movie as a little vignette. And most movies are like that. Most movies have multiple different mini movies that are done by entirely different crews that get bolted together.
hey, the second unit, go out and get this.
Yep.
And then they come back and like, here you go. Like, oh, it's better than what we've been doing.
Uh-oh. Put this in the trailer.
Yeah. Well, then you find out they shoot shots that aren't going to be in the movie specifically for the trailer.
A lot of times that's happened recently that I've been very upset. So
Yeah. Well, so in the email, you should have been warned about doing a player character confessional.
Oh, okay. I wasn't, but all right, let's roll.
It should have been in the email.
Well, first of all, explain to me what a player character confessional is. I'm interested.
So they started out at events where we would just sit down with players and record them. And I'd put them up on YouTube, and then accidentally, when I moved my email server, I accidentally destroyed my YouTube account because I moved away from Google hosting it. Thankfully, I still have all the files. So the idea is you sit somebody down and they tell us what game system, the name of the character, and all the pertinent information. Like I'm a half dwarf, half drow, bard that from 3rd edition. And then in character, you tell us about one time you totally foobarred the entire party.
Oh, Jesus.
And then what we do is we clip the audio, and then when I get home, I'm going to be editing all these. We're going to start putting them up on YouTube, and then I will modulate the voice. There'll be a brick wall with a light on it and a silhouette. So describing a character helps us figure out how the silhouette will be done, and then we'll put what system it is. That way, people kind of know what context. But yeah, player character confessionals. So do you have an interesting story?
Like from one of my many playtesters? Maybe. Oh, geez. Is this about my system, or could it be about anything? Because I don't usually play
any
my own
system,
game.
any game that you've ever played in your life. And we did one a couple weeks ago, a GM confessional. So we're going to start asking those as well, and that'll be a separate series. But I want to get some more player character confessionals. And it sounds like you have some fun player character confessionals.
I think all of my player characters have to be confessionals, because like I'm always that guy that inadvertently ruins the GM's plans. Like, even if I sometimes I lean into it, but generally I'm just trying to get along. I just always have some off the wall idea where I'm like, oh, we're up against the wall, we're gonna die. Maybe if we do this crazy thing. And yeah, I've inadvertently broken a lot of role playing games as a result of that. Probably and I've had characters that actually have dramatic arcs that go along with that too. Like I had a paladin character that went very insane in his very last act and killed the entire party until his warlock friend, who, by the way, he thought he had redeemed, shot him in the back with an eldritch blast and murdered him.
Nice. So in 5th edition, I had one recently that I'm going to have to record. I was playing a warlock, and so some person in our party is being challenged as he killed someone, and they want to avenge the person that they think he killed, and he had nothing to do with it. So we roll initiative, and I was like, okay, I've got this great idea. They're gonna have 1-on-1 combat. I'm gonna do this cool thing using a spell I'd never used before, and I don't play much 5th ed, so my brain doesn't necessarily wrap around all the rules. And I thunder a step onto the table where the rest of the minions for this bad guy's party's at. Well, I did 3d10 damage to everyone within 10 feet. I killed almost all the minions, and then I brought the building down because wood and thunder damage is not a good combination, and I ended up destroying this like entire outpost by accident. It was like, and everybody else in the group's like, "Why did you do that?" I was like, "Well," and I said when I landed in Thunder Step, I was like, "Let them fight." Oops. And I rolled near max damage too. You know, it's like, well, so playing that out in character is a perfect example of a player character confessional.
I wish I'd watched a bunch of them. I have no idea what to do there. So this is going to be interesting.
Well, you got one that you would like to share?
Oh my god. There's some like it's not even a matter of like, do I have one? I have about 30, and they're not even all mine. Like my favorite characters are always like the players I get at my table. Like I had one character who I straight up Lobo from DC comic books was like the character they were trying to play. They were a blackguard, and she continued to inadvertently seduce every character. It was my ex at the time who was playing the male character, and she just got into it and seduced every female character, no matter how little they resembled her anatomically. So at one point, she inadvertently sired an entire species of half Lobo, half Roach people, and destroyed the world. So I think that'd be the one I would share. Because I mean, she would seduce gods and like get weird deity powers. Like she had the power to store anything in her stomach. So at one point, she took an NPC and just swallowed him because she was way bigger, and just kept the guy in her belly for a week, and then vomited back up when they needed him. This was a really cool character, is what I'm saying.
So I'm gonna mute, and then so you need to tell us the system, the character, and character description. So half Lobo, whatever character. Give us a character description, then give a little pause, and then in character tell us something crazy.
Okay, and I'm leading off with the system is going to be Adventure Conqueror King is when we were running. And this was an anti-paladin, I believe. It's a very powerfully homebrewed one, and a made-up race for this campaign, a half Zarnian. So there I was. We had just done a job for the Queen of the Roaches. Had to go and clean out this sewer of some really powerful monsters, which were delicious, by the way, after we were done killing them. And the Roach Queen asked us all what we wanted for reward. Of course, the thief wanted some kind of magic dagger, and the other thief wanted something that allowed him to masquerade as different people, stuff that the thieves wanted. But for me, like, I'd basically already gotten my reward. I'd gotten a really good dinner out of it and a good fight. So the only thing I could see was the Roach Queen in front of me. And, being the man that I am, I asked for a night with her for my reward. And once she cracked open her carapace and showed all the throbbing, veiny, white, pulpy flesh meat thrubbing inside, I knew I'd chosen wisely. And that's when I inadvertently sired a species of half Zarnian, half Roachmen that did eventually wind up conquering and destroying the world. So that's my confession.
It's a horrible and amazing all at the same time. Yeah. I really hope that all of you in the chat are enjoying the white, pulsating, veiny imagery of...
I promise you, that's how I described it to the player, and she still went for it. That's dedication to role playing right there. That's what my character would do.
I know the character I made, and that character's going for it, whether he wants to or not. That is awesome and horrible all at the same time. I love it.
This is a good campaign. I got to tell you, that was one of the year-long campaigns. I've noticed that about a year is how much juice I have in a given campaign before I'm sick of it. So Yeah.
I've had a couple 3-year long campaigns. I know some people that are in decade long campaigns. I've never done anything that long.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
I don't have that kind of patience.
the longest and craziest was started off with 1 GM and 6 players, and then when I left the game, it was 7 GMs and 64 players.
Went Castle Blackmore on you.
Yeah, it was crazy. Let's see. I'm getting notes of what I need to tell everybody here. Let's see. Oh, did we have more?
Yeah, if there's more questions, I'll answer them.
Let's see. We will stream at 3 p.m. Pacific tonight. Let's see. And ask Joel to tell us where we can find and support him.
Oh, that's a good question. I probably should actually
where can
tell
we
you
find
how
and
to.
support you?
Okay. So the Kickstarter has concluded. It's going to be releasing here in a few months once I get it finalized and edited. Currently working on the Armory chapter, which is one of 3 chapters left. We've gotten, let me see, core rules, the character creation, and the GM chapter done, as well as the domains chapter. So now we're just doing the Armory, the Bestiary, and the Lores chapter, which is like the setting chapter. So it's really close to being completed. I should have the Armory chapter done by the end of this month, and then next month we should wrap it up, and then it'll be editing. So it'll be available on Drive-Thru RPG as soon as it gets released, so as a print on demand, and also as a PDF. But until then, if you want the most updated version of the rules, the best place to go to is the Five Emperors Patreon. I've actually worked the group of people that are making this game at the Five Emperors, and it's a $2 a month subscription. You get access to the living playtest document, which is all the most current rules as soon as I write them. You get access to the vlog. You get access to all the art as soon as our artists get done with it. So there's a really good way to get involved. You also get I believe you still get a special hat on our Discord, the Fistiverse, which you are always, and everyone, I invite everyone who's interested in this thing to come on over to the Fistiverse Discord and have yourself a good old time. It's a fun place. There's a lot of really cool people there. This is basically the kind of conversations you can expect. And it's a good place, and I'm constantly there talking about like whatever crazy adventure I'm having in designing this game. So that'll be a fun little theater for all y'all.
I could have swore we backed your game.
No joke. That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, I'm looking on my Kickstarter now, and I don't see it, but I could have swore we backed it.
I should actually send you because I've got the alt tab over here. I can just send you. It's just a Google Doc right now. I've got, of course, different versions on the computer and what have you, but this is the most current version. Let me see if my computer can do 2 things at once. It's an old computer. It might not be able to. So if I suddenly cut out, it's because I've crashed. There we go. Okay, so I got a nice. Is there a chat here where I can just send you this?
Yes, there is. Or you can just email it to me or Carissa later.
Captions, present option. I don't usually. Oh, here it is. This is a little chat with everyone thing. Okay, here we go. So don't spread this around widely. This is like the core of the Patreon, but that right there is a link to the actual playtest document, and it even has a little bit of art in it right now because our wonderful rockstar artist Kazuki Shinto has made some really cool stuff, and I love showing off his work because he's an artist for hire from the Philippines, and he's just amazing stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. I was following the game, and I was following your Kickstarter, and I could have swore we backed you.
It might have been the last one. I actually had a failed Kickstarter prior to this Kickstarter, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, more than that's probably what happened.
Was it the same game?
Same game. Yeah,
okay.
So that's probably what happened. Was that one went through? It had a really high funding goal because I wanted to do a traditional offset print run. This is too new of a game. It's too experimental to reasonably fund that. So I knocked it down to a print on demand so I could just get the actual game done and not have to worry about the overhead with printing and all the stuff that went on with that. It really helped me focus on the actual writing of the game, A, and making it good. B, it made the Kickstarter goal like $15,000 lower, which was much more achievable.
Yeah, there we are. Okay. I was like, okay. I
appreciate it anyway.
I missed that it was canceled and restart. So we tried to back you.
I'll take the second wave of backing was kind of in a panic after the first because I didn't like you never know what you're doing the first time you do one of these things. You know, I'm still kind of muddling my way through it, but it seems to be going in a good direction.
Something I need to do with all these interviews is go through and clip advice from people that have done successful Kickstarters and put together,
That's a little.
So what would you like to tell people that were your highs and lows and positives and negatives of running a Kickstarter campaign?
Honestly, like I went through Kickstarter and Drive Through RPG are my two touch points as far as like industry level touch points. They're fantastic people. In both cases, they're very professional. They'll talk with you directly. They're very frank. They have like discords. Like they've got tons of resources for you. So lean into the resources. Be frank about your goals and things, and listen to their advice. That was a lot of good experiences there. In terms of advice to give people, make friends. Like this is not an industry where you can be as ruthlessly professional as some, and like you get like even this is not like the stock floor. Like you can't like make a friend one day then cut them off and make them a bunch of money on the second day. It's not like that. This is a very social place, and you need to be sociable and nice to people. And even if you can't work with someone, it's good to keep that friendship alive, because it's a small industry. We all know each other, you know. And there are a few creators, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a few creators who don't do that. And some of them are big creators, and they're just terrible about that. They're manipulative, and you've got to kind of aim for the hobby that you want to have. And the hobby that I want to have is one like this, where you're talking with people and sharing stories and being open. I don't want the kind of backbiting, like talking in the back room, spreading rumors BS. I'm done with that. So be open and make friends is my biggest advice, because all the people I work with are also, they're kind of friends of mine, you know. And yeah, they're friends I give money to and get stuff from, but there's still people that there's still people that want the best. I mean, like Kazuki is a good example of a guy that like loves the game. Jeffrey Gabowski, the guy who did the art for All Above Heaven, that Kickstarter. There's still art, by the way, that hasn't been released for that, so they look forward to that. Just getting closer to him and like talking to him, he's a really cool dude. And I'm actually this is back when I first started making games. He was way out of my price range. He was a much bigger fish than I realized he was. I just saw his it wasn't DeviantArt, it was like some webpage, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I'll just email this guy and get him to make art for me. And the prices he quoted were out of this world, because he works on big games. Like, he's a fantastic artist. But he talked to me, and just by being personable and clear and reasonable with him, he actually was able to work something out where, like, you know, I got deprioritized a little and got a much cheaper version of the art, and it gets to grace my game with this unbelievably talented artist. So make friends. That's the biggest advice I could give anybody in this industry.
That is and that kind of goes along with a lot of our philosophy. Is you know, I tell people, you know, not every GM is GM's for you, not every gaming group's for you, but you're going to find a group of people that you want to play with, and then hopefully you find a game that you want to play, whether it be a post-apocalyptic game, fantasy, you know, fighting robots. Somebody, there's one of the first people we interviewed has a ton of little small games. One of them, you play as a kaiju who's trying to thwart the mastermind who's trying to take over the world that you work for, but you have to do it without getting fired. So I mean, there's silly little games like that everywhere. And
sounds like my life with Master, except it's a kaiju. That's great.
Yeah,
my life with kaiju.
You know, yeah, whatever is your thing. There, especially, it's, you know, no, we're not limited to playing with the handful of people in your town anymore. You can play through Roll20 or virtual tabletop, or I've played on you know, Google Hangouts. I played back in the late 90s. I played a Star Wars game on ICQ. And if anybody out there remembers what ICQ was, which is hilarious, because the McDonald's here in Ukraine, their alarms for the French fries is the ICQ.
It's amazing.
I about lost it. I was like, I was like, the hell? Like, oh god, it's your fry alarm is the ICQ. Like, who programmed that? And it's everywhere, like because invariably when I'm traveling with somebody, like, oh, let's swing by McDonald's, and I'm just standing in there, just I'm like, oh, but make friends, go find the table that's right for you, sit down and have a good time, and, you know, maybe work on your mental health a little while playing an RPG. It's a great thing to do, whether you're escaping or working on your communication skills, or maybe even math. I don't know. So I think we're gonna call it there for a night, and we'll say goodbye to all our guests, and thank you for stopping by the library and and involving yourself in our insane, weird, fever dream of a hot dog and taco chat that we had.
May all your dogs be hot and all your tacos crunchy.
Yeah, I'm a crunchy taco guy, not into the soft tacos.
I knew you were a man of culture.
Yeah, if I'm going to do a soft taco, it might as well be a bun and a hot dog.
Exactly.
So,
softest taco I'll eat is a hot dog.
So, are we going to sing songs on our